Well, I do one session, one big long session with them, and in that I'm really trying to get them to think about the challenges of leading change. In my view, leadership today is primarily focusing on how to make change happen. You get very few leaders who are appointed into a job who are told carry on as you are. Most of the time there is a big change agenda, and that's what I'm trying to deal with. They need to understand what change is about and how to make it happen. So I'm trying to get them to think strategically about that. The second thing is I want them to think a bit about how they themselves as leaders want to work in the process of change. In other words, what role do they want to play? How do they feel comfortable? What are the things they think they can do well and the things that they need to do better? Probably the third thing is to really just think a bit about the importance of influence, because most of the time what I think is that leaders have got to do two things. They've got to influence people, and associated with that they've got to make big decisions, and so those things are connected, and that's where I want to get to with this session as an outcome of it at the end of it. We read a lot about leaders being big heroic people who've got vision and all that. In fact, the job of leading is much more a mundane, everyday thing that people have to focus on, where people have to focus on the nuts and bolts of getting things done, as well as the sort of question of what are they trying to do in the round or the bigger picture. So what I want them to do, really coming away from this, is to have a strong sense of what their leadership role is and how they are actually playing that out. The second thing is I want them to actually just think about what it means to them to be a leader. In other words, what style do they have? How do they think of themselves as a leader? How do they show this to other people? And how do they have an impact on those around them? For me, there are usually a number of themes. One is, how do I do this? How do I deal with the difficult people is one thing. How do I get them to change? And there are always some difficult people, but the important thing is to understand that that should not stop you. The second thing is to think a bit about, more broadly, about why resistance to change occurs, but not just resistance. One of the things I try to say is that actually resistance is only part of the story, and there are other things you have to take into account. And linked to that, what I try to do is to get people to think a bit about, when I'm leading change, how do I mobilize and maximize the support that I have as a leader and make the most of that in order to make change happen successfully, because you're not going to do it on your own. You need support, and you need good allies, and that's where we go with this session. You're working with a group of experienced people, so I'm learning as well as they're learning from me. It's a reciprocal process. It tests my ideas, it helps me to keep thinking and refining my ideas, and it shows me where the link between what I've got, my ideas and my models, actually comes home to roost in terms of the practice. That's one thing. Secondly, it's a diverse group, so you're always getting different viewpoints. It's usually a very lively group, so the debate and the interaction is terrific, challenging for me, but also a great learning atmosphere for them as well.